2, 3, 4, hop. 1, 2, 3, 4, hey. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Every day. Every day. Gotta run. Gotta run. Every day. Every day. Gotta run. Gotta run. Gotta be. Gotta be. Number one. Number one. Gotta be. Gotta be. Number one. Number one. Gotta be. Gotta be. Airborne. 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 Ranger. Ranger. Airborne. Airborne. Ranger. Ranger. Ah. Ah.
The tank crews of the United States Marine Corps are fighting men with a tradition that is second to none. Tripoli, Iwo Jima, Khe Sanh, and Desert Storm. Lance Corporal Dominic Scavo is an example of that special kind of fighter.
Joined the Marine Corps because it's the best fighting organization there is. Because of their long history of do or die, you know, get the mission accomplished by any means. They're simply just the best by their rep.
Corporal Daniel O'Donnell of Utica, New York, is another Marine tanker.
My job is to devastate the enemy in the best way I know how. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a tank.
Camp Wilson, on the huge Marine base at 29 Palms, California, is where these men train. But Marine tankers aren't just trained. They're transformed to become one with their machines.
The old cliche goes, it's a dinosaur. But I'm a strong believer that it's not the vehicle itself, the equipment. It's the personnel. You get a piece of equipment and you have a well-trained crew on it. That well-trained crew in an older vehicle will be able to shoot and move and communicate better than a not-so-well-trained crew on a better piece of machinery.
For the last 40 years, the Marines' main battle tank has been the M60. It's hot, dusty, and cramped out on maneuvers, but these Marines are highly motivated as well as expertly trained. General Dynamics M60A3 main battle tank is perhaps the final stage and crowning achievement of the basic M26 and M48 design. The M60 supersedes its predecessors with an improved suspension, track, and a computer-based fire control weapon system. A laser rangefinder aims a 105mm main gun. The main gun is fully stabilized when traveling on rough terrain for maximum projectile accuracy. The gunner's infrared sight illuminates the darkest of nights and can see through the battlefield's smoke and dust. The M60 represents conventional tank design wisdom at its peak. The 4 crew members, a commander, a driver, a gunner, and a loader, can put up a strong fight 24 hours a day. The M60 weighs more than 100,000 pounds and is 23 feet in length. Its 12-cylinder air-cooled diesel engine can power the vehicle to a road speed of 30 miles per hour with a maximum range of 300 miles. The M60 can climb a 3-foot vertical obstacle and traverse an 8-foot trench. The M60's 105mm main gun is backed up with a 7.62mm machine gun and 12.7mm anti-aircraft gun. The impenetrability of its armor is classified by the U.S. Department of Defense. More than 9,000 M60s are deployed by the U.S. Army and Marines.
The M60 is a battle-proven tank. It's a fine tank. Did its job well over in Saudi Arabia. And it's not in the class of the M1. The M1 is the Cadillac of tanks now, but in her class and in her day, she was a great tank.
It takes a crew of 4 men who have to be in sync with each other to run this tank smoothly and efficiently.
The tank commander on the vehicle is overall responsible of ensuring that vehicle can shoot, move, and communicate.
Intelligence and concentration are what it takes to command the crew of the M60.
My job is gunner. I gun 105 millimeter gun, which is right here. And I also gun this coax machine gun right here. What coax is just coaxially mounted with the main gun. It moves when you traverse, elevate the main gun. It goes with the main guns. And also you can, through the one sight, it's called your 32 in that, you can fire both weapons off from that one sight. So, with just a flick of the switch. And my job is a real good one, I think, because, you know, it kind of gives you that good feeling of destroying things, because you're the one that's destroying it. But everybody on this crew plays a very important role in accomplishing the mission.
I'm a loader on an M60A1 tank. I load the main gun, make sure when the machine guns, if they have a malfunction or a jam, I clear it and then reload it up. Make sure the weapons are always able to shoot. Inside, when you're loading, you're kind of nervous the first time because you know it ejects the casing, and you're not sure exactly where it's going to go when it ejects. So you're kind of nervous. When it ejects, it usually just falls straight down. And after the first time, it's pretty much down pat.
The driver's got to control this nearly, well, it's 56.6 tons of steel, and it's not an easy job because the terrain you go through can really throw this tank all around. The driver's job is basically to get me to smooth stops so that I can get in on my target. And when he hits his brakes, this tank will rock. And when it rocks, it throws me off from sight. And sometimes I can totally lose my target completely. And when you got a real good driver, which we do, and he can get me right in there and come to a nice smooth stop so that I can get my round off like that. You know, because that's the whole thing, it's time. You've got to get yours downrange before he gets his down on you.
Because once we shoot, we've given away our position. So if the gunner has missed, we want to get another round on him and at least keep his head down so he can't shoot back at us and get that second round kill.
On the way!
Trench warfare during World War I would claim more than 800,000 lives. British naval officer Winston Churchill promoted the deployment of armored land vehicles. It was hoped that this new tank weapon would protect advancing British soldiers from the bullets of German machine guns. The tank's early successes changed the way wars would be fought, as soon as tank technology caught up with its potential. By World War II, tanks were the backbone of the European armies. In the northern Sahara Desert, German Afrika Korps Commander Erwin Rommel was ultimately defeated by British Lieutenant General Bernard Law Montgomery in their legendary tank battles. On the Eastern Front, the German Army's panzers were being outgunned by the Soviets' T-34s. Although experts in combining air and ground forces, the German military was ultimately crushed in the East by the massive deployment of Soviet tanks and artillery. This Soviet battle doctrine emphasizing huge numbers of armored vehicles is still followed today. The Soviet Army's victory at Kursk started their march into Berlin. On the Western Front, U.S.-built M4 Sherman tanks were commanded by Generals Omar Bradley, George S. Patton, and Courtney H. Hodges. In the Allies' final drive of the war, a key bridge which crossed the Rhine River at Remagen was captured intact. The fierce house-to-house battle inside the German city was over within hours. The victory at Remagen allowed Allied tank forces to push into the heart of Germany, and within a month, the war in Europe was over. Across the Pacific, U.S. Marines fought with tanks in their land battles against the Japanese Army. After a Japanese stronghold had been bombarded by aircraft and from offshore naval guns, the landed Marines and their tanks were assigned the bloody job of conquering the island. A complex system of tunnels and pillboxes meant that the final fights would be extremely close and dangerous. Tanks were modified with flamethrowers to root out the most tenacious Japanese defenders. The Japanese soldier was just about the most dedicated fighting man ever put into battle. Out of 120,000 troops stationed on Okinawa, only 7,400 allowed themselves to be taken prisoner. Many Japanese who refused to give up suffered horrible deaths as they were incinerated by flamethrowers. As in Europe, tanks made absolutely clear to all which army controlled the area. They were the final decisive force in each of the war's land battles. The U.S. Marines brought their M60s to Beirut on a peacekeeping mission. Upon their arrival, they found a country which had been nearly destroyed from within by a religious civil war, and from the outside by Syria and Israel, whose futures were at stake with Lebanon's final outcome. The city had been a raging battlefield since 1975 for Christian, Muslim, and Druze militias. Syria believed that Lebanon was part of a greater Syria, separated due to a French colonial whim after World War II. Israel was after its enemy, the Palestine Liberation Organization, which was now headquartered there. The Marines arrived in the middle of this sorrow-filled trouble spot, hoping to keep any more innocent people from being killed. Helped by British, French, and Italian forces, they dug in to stay a while. Many of the Marines were landed in FMC's Amphibious Assault Vehicle 7s. These big, armored personnel carriers can cruise at sea for short distances, as well as drive on land. 25 combat-ready Marines can be transported from ship to land in the AAV-7 and be protected from small arms fire, shell fragments, and flash burns. To fight back, it's armed with a 12.7 millimeter machine gun. Luckily, the Marines landed in Beirut with little trouble. The Marines were ordered to stop all warring militias and armies from committing any acts of aggression. They knew that this might be trickier to pull off than landing in a hot LZ. To defend themselves from attack, they were armed with M198 155 millimeter howitzers, mortars, and of course, M60 main battle tanks. The Marines' main headquarters was set up beside Beirut's International Airport. This strategic location allowed them to protect the city's most valued asset and to monitor much of Lebanon's incoming and outgoing materiel and personnel. Once settled in, Marines were assigned to foot patrol and to stand guard at Marine bases and camps. This lonely job was boring and frustrating to some, as they had been trained for active combat, not for police duty. Nonetheless, they kept a watchful eye on the city and stood as a symbol to its residents that any more fighting would not be tolerated. Going into Beirut to patrol its streets and alleys was a fascinating experience for a young Marine fresh from Camp Lejeune. The sights and sounds of this ancient Arab city opened the door to a culture very different from that of the United States. The souks, or marketplaces, were full of life, and the Lebanese people showed no sign of giving in to the conflict around them. Destruction from the ongoing war was seen almost everywhere near the infamous Green Line. But most tragic were the poor children who were forced to grow up amidst this daily horror. The United States had asked its Marines to stop the fighting in Beirut. The militias didn't want to be stopped, so the Marines were prepared to find themselves in the middle of someone else's raging war. The crumbling rubble of property and military equipment from all sides cluttered up the city like only the waste of war can. The constant bombardments of tank and artillery shell fire have made their marks, which are sure to last for Beirut's remaining days. Whichever side wins this war will probably have nowhere left to live. During combined arms exercises, Marine tankers test their skills in conjunction with other Marines and their weaponry. The first obstacle encountered is an enemy minefield. The tank crews learned to work in coordination with Marine Cobra attack helicopters in a strategy that proved incredibly effective during their engagements against Iraqi tanks in Desert Storm.
Expended all ordnance, over.
Mine-clearing land charges fire explosive-filled hoses across the minefields.
What I want you to do, tanks.
The hoses then detonate, exploding any mines buried under the sand. This creates a safe 10-yard wide path through which the tanks can now safely penetrate enemy territory. Now the M60s move into the breach and prepare to engage the enemy on the other side.
Man, it's a long way away, too. I know it is. They're right over this berm, aren't they?
A target in sight, this tank's crew prepares to engage. First, they open up with a deadly rain of .50 caliber machine gun fire for defense against possible infantry assault.
left.
We got him. We got him. One is 1-1. Steve's machine gun fire. Steve's machine gun fire. We got good
Next,
job.
they prepare to fire their powerful main guns to deal with the hardened armor that opposes them.
38.
Reload. Get on target.
1-4 can be arranged for those BMP. 1-1 is 1 dose.
I got those signatures, that's all I got.
Up. 38. 38. Yeah. Fire. Fire. Reload. Up. And away.
Looks like we were maybe short.
The Marine tankers advance to mop up any pockets of resistance.
Keep going. Get up there. Get up there. Get up there.
We got machine gun fire down there.
Commander, the BMP team out of high. Got him.
Yeah, identified.
We got stagger fire. We got stagger fire. 1 is 1-1. We got 3 more BMPs. The far set of targets. Far set of targets up on the ridge line.
Suddenly, reserve enemy tanks are spotted spoiling for a fight.
This is 1-1. Continue to fire. Center BMP only. Center BMP only. Fire!
Identified. On the way!
Out. Fire. And away. Reloaded. Away.
Again, the enemy seems to have been taken care of. The tankers move forward quickly, but ever on the alert. An imaginary kill from a plywood enemy tank could spell death in a real-life battle.
Get up there. Go ahead and take out that last BMP. Over. All right. Let's go get him. Get your name on.
Once again, they prepare to engage.
Reload. Get on target.
Up. On 38.
38.
On the way.
Yeah. Cancel safe round. Up. I'm gonna go. Up. Reload.
Gone. There ain't even no target standing there.
4 shots, 4 direct hits. A job well done. The M60 may not be as advanced technologically as newer tanks, but in the expert hands of these Marines, it's prepared for anything an enemy can throw at it. August 2nd, 1990. After much posturing and saber rattling, Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein decided to settle his differences with his Kuwaiti neighbors at the point of his troops' bayonets. He ordered the invasion, occupation, and systematic destruction of the small oil-rich Arab state. Against token Kuwaiti resistance, Hussein's massive numbers of tanks and troops swarmed over the small country like locusts. Hussein had thrown a gauntlet at the feet of the free and Arab worlds. President Bush and the leaders of an allied coalition answered Hussein's challenge. The U.S. Marines, true to their traditions, were amongst the first to draw a line in the sand.
I believe it was February 24th, when we were several kilometers away from the Saudi Arabia-Kuwaiti international border. Our company commander, who at the time was Captain Robeson, he said, "Okay, gentlemen," he got all the leaders, key leaders together. He said, "Okay, gentlemen, this is it."
The thing I'm really worried about, because of the difference.
He got us together, and he gave us our op order on how we were going, where we were going, how we were going to do it. For the last time, had been rehearsed over and over to where the low man off the totem pole could do what I could do. And we went back to our tanks as a platoon, and I spoke to the platoon, and I told them, I said, it's only one way, gentlemen. And they said, how's that, Staff Sergeant? And I said, it's either kill or be killed. If there's a doubt, then you as a tank commander make that judgment call. If there's not a doubt, and you know it's a target, then engage and destroy it.
I'd probably say the first day, when we left from Saudi Arabia that night, and the first day, that afternoon, we rolled into a minefield, which was about 150, 200 meters deep, and we had to clear the minefield.
Line charges blasted a path through the deadly Iraqi-laid minefields. Once the mines were neutralized, the battle-ready Marine tank crews led the attack into Kuwaiti territory.
I was on a tank that had basically like a bulldozer plow on it. And as we were driving through, the Iraqis started launching mortars and artillery on us. And I could see him. I was buttoned up. I mean, I was just looking out through the little periscopes I have in the driver's compartment. But I could still see the rounds of dirt flying in front of us. And next thing I know, I heard my tank commander talk to the gunner. They had both seen basically a stick, which the mortars used to acquire their targets. The next thing I knew that there were no more mortars falling down towards us because we had just taken a shot at them. And either we hit them or they ducked. Regardless, they didn't shoot back at us.
As the Marines advanced towards Kuwait City, they came face to face with Hussein's tanks. The Iraqis' T-55 and T-59 tanks and their crews proved to be no match for the superior fighting skills of the Marine tankers. The M60 might be almost 40 years old, but with motivated Marines inside, it could still get the job done. As the Marines advanced farther into a decimated Kuwait, skies turned dark even though it was barely mid-morning. Dense smoke from the burning oil fields had so heavily covered the sky that many a Marine had to resort to their night vision goggles to see. Then suddenly out of the smoke they came, prisoners. First a handful, then hundreds, then thousands. Victory took only a few days. In hard-fought battles at places like the Bergen oil fields, the Marines and Joint Arab Forces managed to liberate Kuwait in less than a week.
Just the thought, as being a leader, just the thought of knowing, having 20 men who, there was no doubt in their mind, they were prepared to give their life. I think that was the most touching thing, you know, to know that none of them, they were afraid. Any man that enters the unknown and uncertain will always be afraid. They were afraid inside, but they held their heads up high and shoulders were back, and they were prepared to attack and whatever objective it was.
Thanks to the Marines and coalition tankers, the once again free Kuwaitis could rejoice. They welcomed their liberators with open arms. Top training, motivation, tradition, and good people you can depend on. Marine tankers have all that and more.
And that was one of my many goals, to achieve the billet of tank commander. It's every tanker's dream to be a tank commander because you're in charge, you're responsible, you're assigned for that vehicle. And how that tank operates is a direct reflect on you as a person. And it shows your professionalism and ability to employ this vehicle.
Well, if you look in the Marine Corps, and you look at the things that we have, and you look what other services have, we're like in the ancient ages. But we still, at the same time, we can make these things do just as much, or just as better as any other more advanced type technology they got. They give us the old stuff, and they make us work with it, and we do, and we succeed in it, which we proved over in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait.
Marines are unique because of the brotherhood that they have. They share alike. They help another Marine in need. There's always a camaraderie there.
The Marine tanker, another one of America's highly trained and motivated elite warriors.